Welcome to my channel. You're watching KNV Monsters, and today we're going to be turning this Vital Bracelet BE into a D3 Digivice. I wanted to start off this video first with a list of things you might need for this project in case you don't have them. First up is going to be a soldering iron. They sell soldering kits online that come with soldering wire and flux paste as well, and so you are going to need some soldering wire, 0.6 millimeters and 0.3 millimeters, and then also the flux paste, which in most cases does come with the soldering kit together. You are also going to need the 3D printed D3 case along with the parts necessary that go inside, and I will go ahead and walk you guys through how to order these parts and where to order them from. This next item is optional, a PCB clip holder. You don't necessarily need this, but I find this extremely helpful, especially for types of jobs like this. You're going to need custom printed PCB, which again I'm going to walk you through how to order these and where to get the files, and they should look like this. Next thing you're going to need is an X-Acto type knife. These are very common, most people have these. You're also going to need some additional parts for the PCB that you're going to solder to it, and I will definitely leave the links in the description below of which parts these are and where to order them from. You're going to need some heat foam tape, 1mm thickness. These are pretty cheap on Amazon. You are going to need some self-tapping screws, mainly the M2-4 and the M2-8. You're going to need some electrical wire. I'm not too educated on what kind of gauge you're going to need, but 26 gauge works fine for me. You're going to need some reflective tape, and these are pretty cheap to order off Amazon as well. And last but not least, some wire cutters. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to a website called Thingiverse, and in the search bar you're going to type in Vital Bracelet BE mod, which will lead you to a couple designs here made by a user named jyoshi1909, and they've got a couple different versions of casings for the Vital Bracelet BE, but today we're going to be working with the D3 version. So you just click that, it'll take you to the page where you're going to get all the files from. As you can see right here, these are the pictures of the 3D prints. And I believe Jyoshi also has a YouTube that you can definitely go subscribe to. Everything you need is in this section right here. Basically what you're going to want to do first is download all the files, which will take you to the screen right here. And if you can, I would definitely recommend going to Jyoshi's Ko-Fi and dropping a donation. This is definitely some good work that we have access to. When you download the files, it should end up in your download folder like so, and all you're going to do is basically just extract these files to a folder inside your computer. And just be sure to remember exactly where these files are, because these are going to be used later on in the video once we get to the website to order them. Next thing you're going to want to do is go back to the website. Now you're just going to scroll down here, and it's going to take you to a link that's going to give you the download files for the PCB that is going to be needed for this project here. So you just click the link. It's going to take you to a Google Drive. Got to put on dark mode. And these two files here, the 01 VBBED3 board and 02, these are the files that you're going to need to download. So once you download them, they will be in your download folder. I find it best to just leave them there for when we need to upload them to the website that we're going to be using. The next thing you're going to want to do is go to a website called JLC PCB. Again, that's JLC PCB. And the company's pretty cool. They do multiple things. This is going to be the website where you're going to upload the Gerber files to print the PCB. And they also do a number of other things, including 3D printing, which we are going to be doing later. So basically what you're going to want to do is click the Add Gerber file, go to your downloads, and then individually, or one by one, you're going to upload the Gerber files for the PCBs that you're going to be ordering. And this is what it should look like. There are a couple options here. Just make sure to click the 0.8 thickness for the PCB, as stated in the file by Joshi. And then you're going to upload the second file here, and again, you're going to click the 0.8 thickness. You can also choose what color you want it, but I think that does change the pricing a bit, but it is definitely customizable and optional. So once you save those to your cart, basically what you're going to do is, well, I mean, obviously if you're going to order them, go to secure checkout. DHL Express shipping is $17.80. I just went with Global Standard Direct Line. That brought the shipping down to $1.38. Total price for that is about $7 and change. So the next thing you're going to do is go to JLC 3DP, and this is going to be where you're going to be uploading the 3D print files for the actual case. You just click the Add 3D files, you go to the file that you downloaded into your computer and select the options that you're going to be choosing. The file that's marked bottom and bottom hide, I think that just means the thickness in the back. Basically hide, from my understanding, if I'm wrong please correct me in the comments, but the bottom hide means a thicker back so you don't really see through the casing all that much. But I like the look of seeing the internals of the device, so I'm just going to click the regular bottom as well as the other pieces needed. We're going to open them all together and the website will upload the files. So the next thing you're going to want to do here is make sure that you are selecting a resin. Now, if you're experienced with this, you can select whatever you want and do whatever you want. You're your own person. But for me specifically, I chose resin. And they do have different options here, but it doesn't really matter. You could mess with those other options of resin. I went with 8001 resin. And then they're going to have two options of what kind of 8001 resin you're going to want. Transparent is a very glossy, clear finish for the device if you want it to look very crystally clear, and the translucent option is going to be kind of like a rough texture that's going to be rough around the edges. Basically, it's not super fine finished. So basically, whatever option you decide to go through, just make sure you select those options on every part that you're ordering. And also too, it will not let you check out until you put the product description. I just went to DIY Entertainment and marked all of them as toys. Again, with the shipping, I just went with Global Standard Direct Line. Brings the shipping down to about $138. Total price for everything, $5.20. If you're like me and you want to do multiple jobs with the case, then, you know, feel free to order more than one. With everything considered, all the parts needed, and the parts that you're going to be ordering, total cost for this project is somewhere around $90 to $100. If you're going to only be buying the PCB, the case, and then the electrical parts needed to solder onto the PCB, total price comes out to about $25 to $30 in total. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get right into dismantling this Vital Bracelet BE. All we're going to do here is take apart the BE and remove the internals from the inside. Now, this is going to be a quick part of the video. I will be uploading a video specifically on how to remove the insides of the BE, and a link to that video will be in the description below as well. But we're just trying to get through this as quickly as possible so we can get to the soldering. Just a brief description here. Once we remove the actual BE from outside the case, the speaker and the heart rate monitor is still going to be attached, but All you have to do is basically just cut the little plastic, the melted plastic on the side with an X-Acto knife, and then very carefully pry out the speaker. This is definitely something that could break the speaker or possibly your BE, so please do so at your own risk. Obviously, this entire project is something that you will be doing at your own risk. I am not responsible for any broken vital bracelets or anything like that. This is something that you definitely want to do at your own risk. So once we have the complete part taken out of the bracelet, basically you just pull everything apart. The front part screen pops right off of the board, and then the battery is just a sticker. You just peel it off. So once you have all of this out of the bracelet casing, now we can move on to the next part, which is specific to the D3 case mod. Basically, this black thing around the screen is the sensor that activates with the NFC. We're going to be removing that, and then we're also going to be removing the screen from the casing. In order to remove the black NFC reader from the casing, basically just get an X-Acto knife and kind of just wiggle it through. Make sure not to cut it. That will damage the product, and you will not be able to use the NFC reader any longer if it is damaged. Once you have enough off of the actual casing, you can just peel it off like a sticker. Just like so. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do is the most nerve-wracking thing. We are going to basically remove the screen from the gold casing. I usually just move the NFC thing out of the way, put it behind so that we can focus on the screen, because it is a little flappy and gets in the way. But you're going to be using that back open part right there to push the screen up, as well as pry it out with the X-Acto knife. And so this part is definitely risky. Please do so at your own risk. If you're not comfortable doing this, then maybe try to hire someone to do it for you. But basically what I did is I just put the X-Acto knife in between the screen and the casing, and I just started prying it out. After looking back through the video, I did find an easier way to probably do this. The top of the casing, there's more of an opening where you can fit the knife in. It'd probably be easier to wiggle the knife in that way and then just pry off the screen from the top, but I did it this way, so it is what it is. And then I'm also just pushing on the back there to loosen up the sticker. The screen is attached to a sticker that is stuck to the casing, and so you have to basically just peel that off as carefully as possible. Once you loosen the other side, just start to push the screen out and try to get it to the point where the sticker is lifted off of the device. And then from there, just use the X-Acto knife very carefully to try to pry off the sticker so that you can pull the screen off. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Once you have the screen loosened up a little bit, you could just stick the knife through the top of it to start to pry off the sticker. I did cut the sticker a little bit, but I did find out later that that did not affect the screen at all, so there was everything was totally fine. I just continued to loosen up the sticker, and eventually it comes to a point where the screen can just peel off. So once you've loosened it up enough, pretty much you just pull it off like a sticker from the case. And that is the screen by itself. Once I got the screen out of the casing, the first thing that I wanted to do was to test it and make sure that it was working properly, so I just did an on and off test here. And it looks like everything is working perfectly fine with the screen. I don't see any cracks, and looks like it's ready to go. So I'm just going to turn the device off and continue on. So this is what the device should look like. Once you've got everything taken out of the bracelet and the screen removed from the casing, you might as well just do this at this point. Basically, you just want to put some strips of the heat foam tape behind the screen, and this is going to protect it from the heat from the circuit board when you have it inside of the case. And it should look like so. And then also, while you're at it, just to make things easier, you can also cover the heart rate sensor with the reflective tape. And I found out that white is probably the best option here. I tried it with green once, but for some reason it wasn't registering correctly. So I would just recommend to use white reflective tape. That should cause the heart rate sensor to read a pulse pretty accurately. And so you just put the reflective tape on another piece of tape and kind of just set it on top of the heart rate sensor like so, and then just tape it around the back. So there you go. The BE internals is all ready to go. Essentially what you're going to do now is just put this aside, and we are going to go ahead and get on to the soldering point. For the soldering temperature, it really depends. If you have experience with this, then you should know, but I put the temperature somewhere between 350 and 375 Celsius, and that's kind of what I was working with. It seems to work well. Also, just to keep in mind as well, the soldering tip is extremely hot, so just be careful not to touch anything above the rubber. It would be even better to just keep your hands far away from the tip, towards the back of the rubber as well. And the parts that you're going to need, the links to these items will be in the description below, but basically you're going to need 2 buttons, an SD card reader, you're going to need a C-type female charge port, and you're going to need 2 resistors. These are the tiniest things I've ever seen in my life, but they are definitely necessary. Alright, and these are the PCBs that we are going to be working on. And then this is the casing that I'm going to be using when it's all finished. This is a casing that I custom painted to look like Hikari's D-3 Digivice. But you don't have to paint it. This is something I just wanted to do. I'm actually thinking about repainting it eventually because I don't really like the paint job. So this is where the PCB clip holder comes into play for holding the PCB while you're going to be doing the soldering. And the first thing that I'm going to be soldering on is the resistors. And look how tiny these things are. They are so tiny. So I found it easier to just start with the resistors first because it's a little hard to get the resistors into place and solder them on when the USB-C charge port is already soldered onto the PCB. So I think it's easier to just do the resistors first and then the USB port after, but you could do it any way you'd like. Doesn't really matter. This is just what I found easier. When you begin to solder, what I found pretty simple to do is for the flux paste, you could just dip the tip of the solder into the flux paste and then apply it to wherever you're soldering to. I've heard of other people doing different ways where they apply the solder first and then they apply everything after. Either or works fine. This is just a little trick that I found out on my own. I do apologize for the shaking. That's going to be happening a lot throughout this video because the mount that I have is attached to the desk that I'm currently working on, which is causing the camera to shake. So my apologies. I hope you bear with me, and I hope that this video is definitely helpful for you. Also too, if the tip doesn't seem to work, you can use the side of the solder. That seems to work very well. And there you go. That's one resistor on, and now to do the next one. By the way, I decided to do the resistors first because it is super hard to get these on when you have the USB charge port already on. It's just hard to reach because that thing is so bulky and it gets in the way. So I do the resistors first, and then I do the USB port after. You can do whatever you want though, obviously in any order. This is just how I do it. Okay, so again, dip the solder wire in flux paste and solder the resistor on. The resistor kind of moved on me there, so I had to just readjust it on the side here. So I got it readjusted, flipped it over to the other side, and now we're soldering that side. Wrong resistor. Yep, that's the one. So what the flux paste does, it makes it easier for the solder material to flow better and heat up quicker. So flux paste is definitely necessary. You could try to do this dry, but it's very hard to do dry. I've already done that once, and then I started using the flux paste after, and it was like the best thing ever. So it just makes the job a lot easier. Whenever you're putting on the USB port to the PCB, just make sure to line up the tabs in the back with the metal contact points on the PC board, and you have to make sure it's all very flush and very nice looking. By the way, for the resistors and the big contact points, I will be using the 0.6mm soldering wire. It's just easier to get the solder on there. Whenever you're doing the smaller tabs behind the USB port and on the SD card reader, you're going to want to use a smaller size soldering wire. So I just decided to go with the 0.3, and that worked perfectly fine. If you use a bigger size soldering wire for the smaller contact points, you're more likely to get solder on 2 contact points at once, which will cause a bridged connection, and you cannot have a bridged connection. Otherwise, the charge port or the SD card reader will not work properly. So a smaller sized soldering wire is definitely necessary in order to do a better job on the soldering needed for the smaller contact points. So there you go. We've got the outside contacts soldered on properly. And so the next thing we're going to be doing is moving on to the 0.3mm soldering wire, and we're going to do the small contacts in the back. Now it is very hard to see in this video. It's actually very hard to see in real life, and so the cool thing about this PCB holder, which I realized later, is that it has a magnifying glass, and that will allow you to see a lot better for the smaller contact points. Also too, having a steady hand is definitely helpful. I am just shaking like crazy. Alright, so I took a break and decided to get back at this the next day. I just put a whole bunch of flux paste on the entire area, and now I'm going back at it with the soldering wire. And again, I just want to let you guys know, it's very important that you don't bridge the connections. It's very hard to remove solder unless you have solder wick or a solder pump, which is it's a tool used to remove solder. It's better to just do it right the first time. If you do make any mistakes, though, there are tools that you can use to remove the solder and then redo it. However, it is a little difficult. So just make sure to, again, use a smaller piece of soldering wire so that it's a lot easier for you to hit those contact points and get them soldered correctly. Next thing we're going to be doing is soldering on the buttons that are going to be used for the case mod. And these are super duper easy. I'm going back to the 0.6 millimeter, and we're just gonna dip it in flux paste and just solder it right on. Okay, so this PCB board is pretty much done. We're going to be moving on to the next one, which is, in my opinion, the hardest one, which is the SD card slot reader PCB. And so basically why I think it's very hard is because the very small contacts, as you can see right there, you have to line these up perfectly with the PCB board. And again, just trying to avoid a bridge connection is what the hard part is about. But essentially, just like the first time around, we're going to clip on the SD card reader onto the PCB and just solder on the contact points on the outside, which is going to hold it in place. Okay, so once you have the outside contact points soldered on, now we're going to move forward with the smaller points, and this is the magnifying glass that I was mentioning earlier. This literally saves my eyes so that I can actually see what I'm doing. So again, switching over to the 0.3 millimeter soldering wire, and we're just going to do one contact point at a time, making sure that there is no bridge connection. Make sure to have flux paste on that wire as well. If you want to just dab flux paste on the actual PCB board where the contacts are, just like I'm doing right there, that's totally fine as well. Also too, the PCB will be hot after soldering it, so just be careful when you're touching it. Alright, so now that we got our PCB boards soldered all together, now we're going to do some more soldering. And basically for this part here, you're going to need 4 pieces of electrical wire. Doesn't matter, you can use whatever color you want. I just went with 2 red, 2 black, since that's the most commonly used. And you're also going to want to just use the clip holder, if you have one, to clip the actual BE to it, as well as the PCB that you're soldering to on the other one, so that they're right next to each other. Just makes things a lot easier. Also too, I do want to show you what is inside my completed case mod, just so that you could see exactly what it's supposed to look like. And this image that I have on screen here is pulled directly from Yoshi's Thingiverse account. Basically, it's under the instructions file for the contact points that you're going to be soldering. And basically these are contact points that are on the BE that you're going to be connecting the wires to and then soldering over and connecting them to the PCB board. So again, use that image on the website to help you out. It's very useful. It'll tell you exactly where you need to solder the wires onto. And the best way that I found to do this process here is, obviously you could do whatever you want. If you have experience in this, then, you know, do what you want. But for me personally, what I did is I would apply the solder first onto the contact point, and then I would heat up the solder on the contact point and then apply the wire to it to kind of just get it stuck there. It's kind of hard to hold the electrical wire and the soldering wire at the same time, and so I just decided to solder on a little bit first and then just attach the wire once the solder is there. Also too, once you're connecting the switch over, and it'll be a lot easier to see here, I basically solder on a small piece of solder wire onto the PCB switch port, and then I just heat it up and stick the wire in there and let it dry. So it should look like so. Once you heat up the solder again, the wire will come loose, so just be careful of that. Basically, once the solder dries up, the wire that's attached to it will stay in place. So again, on the second switch access point here, just applied a little bit of solder, put the wire up to it, I heat up the solder, and then attach the wire. If anyone has any experience in soldering and knows a better way to do this, please leave a comment down below and let me know. I would definitely appreciate it. I'm sure as other people who are reading the comments as well. So there you go. We've got 2 switches down, and obviously if it makes it easier to move the speaker out of the way, I just tucked it behind the heart rate sensor. But yeah, 2 of the switches are down. The next thing you're going to want to do is the ground point, I believe. And again, use the picture for reference. It's really hard to point it out on the video here. The picture will do so much for you if you just have it up while you're doing it at the same time. This part was a little bit difficult. Sometimes what happens is the solder dries up within the wire, which then makes it really hard to attach, so that made things a little difficult. Okay, so once you got the ground soldered on to the BE board, you're just going to link up the other side to the ground tab there, and then just solder on that wire. The next one is going to be the power source. Again, very hard to see on the video. Use the picture for reference. Looks like Valdermon decided to take a poo, so let's go ahead and get rid of that. Oh, now it's happy. Again, sorry for the shaking. I am trying my best to keep the camera steady, but it is attached to my table, and I'm working on the table, so it's causing it to move. Once you get the wire attached to the power source on the BE bracelet, then you're just going to solder on to the 5V slot, and that is going to be it. So that's what it should look like. Next thing you want to do is insert the other PCB board with the SD card reader into the side there, just like so. And that's going to be screwed on to the case itself, and you'll see exactly where you need to screw it on. So this is ready to go into the case, so pretty much get your case ready. And I don't know exactly where to get the glass screen for the front of the case, and so I pretty much decided to do it a different way. What I did was I just cut up some clear plastic in the shape of the holder on the actual case for the screen, and that seems to work fine for me. If anyone knows where to get the glass screen from, please let me know. I'd like to eventually order one since it does look a lot more high-end, and obviously it's more protective. And then once you got it cut to size, basically just fit it in the front before you put the screen in, so it's in front of the screen. And it should look like so. Alrighty, next thing that we're gonna do is put everything together and finalize everything. Basically the screen just goes right into that slot right there where you just put in the plastic screen protector at. And this can be a little bit difficult, so just make sure not to force anything. You don't want to break the screen, okay? Just try to fit it in as gently as possible. If something is not budging, remove the screen, adjust the plastic screen protector, or if you have a glass one, that's even better because it should fit perfectly. But yeah, don't force anything. Just try to get the screen to fit nicely into the case so that you don't crack it or break it or anything like that. So once you've got the screen pretty much in place, the next thing that you're going to do is put the speaker into place, and there is a little circular indent in the case, as you can see right there. All you have to do, I kind of did it off screen here, so my apologies, but all you have to do is just get the speaker down into that area right there and then push it in. There should be some tabs that keep the speaker in place, and so once you get it into the right spot, it should just stay there like so. And the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to take the actual BE and you're going to fit it to size. There should be some brackets there for the actual circuit board of the BE to fit into. And what you're going to, the screw that I'm using right here to screw on the BE into the case is going to be the screw that you take from the bracelet. It's one of the screws that basically goes in that exact same hole on the bracelet, just the opposite way. And so make sure to save those screws. Probably should have mentioned that in the beginning. So once you've got the circuit board attached right there, you're just going to get some of the self-tapping screws. I think this is a size 4, if I'm not mistaken. One of the small ones. It should be very easy to figure that out. And then you're going to screw in the button PCB. And so always do a test as well. As I was testing right here, I basically figured out that the button on the top was not clicking. And obviously that's not good. So now what I have to do is unsolder that button and solder on a new one, because if the button doesn't click, then obviously you can't use it. So quick little soldering job here. The device I'm using here is a solder pump. This is definitely useful if you're trying to remove solder. Basically it like sucks really quickly, and yeah, you just heat up the solder and you put the soldering pump right where the liquidy solder is, and then it'll suck it all up and remove it. If you are having trouble removing it though, what I found out to be very useful as well is to use the X-Acto knife to kind of lift up the part and then solder at the same time, and that'll weaken the parts as well, and so it's easier to take off that way as well. In case you don't have a soldering pump, you could remove it this way. Okay, so we're applying the new button on, and hopefully this one is not broken. Okay, very easy fix. I just double checked it right now as well, and the button is clicking. So once you screw on that board there, then you're going to retest the buttons and just make sure that everything is clicking. And as long as you get it click, you should be fine. But basically also too, the pressure of the screws is going to determine how flush it is to the buttons as well. You don't want the screws too tight, so you might need to loosen them a little bit. And then just make sure that it's at a point to where it's, you know, definitely clicking and it has ease of access to float back up as well. Alrighty, so now we're just putting everything else together. I usually just take a piece of tape here and tape the NFC reader to the battery, just like so. And then you're going to want to tuck in the heart rate sensor just to there's a very small opening on the right side of the case there. Just tuck it in there, it should be fine. Alright, next thing you do is get the antenna and then put the back of the case on. And everything should fit nicely. Okay, everything is clicking fine. And the screws that you're going to use for the back here, I used the size 8 self-tapping screws. The instructions say to use a bigger screw, and you could if you want, but the size 8 worked pretty fine. I think if the inside ever strips, I could just always extend it to a bigger screw as well. So there you go. Everything is put together. The sides are kind of flush. There's a little bit of a gap right here, but that's just because the paint is like pushing up against each other right there. But it should close nice and flush just like so. And there you go. The BE is all put into the case, and now we're going to test it, make sure it turns on. Okay, the device turns on. Looks like it's working properly. Now we're going to test the buttons, make sure those are working. Alright, the confirm button is working, and the select button is also working. Alright, so far so good. So the next thing that we are going to do is test the SD card slot reader. This is probably the most tedious thing. If it is not working, you have to take apart the entire thing and then redo the solder. So if you wanted to test this while it's outside of the case, you could do that as well. But I was pretty confident in my soldering skills this time around. The first time I did it, it did not work, but it looks like it is working the first time around on this BE mod. Perfect. Alright, and we got ourselves a little Puyo-mon. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test the charge port. And we're plugging it into a Type C charger. And as you can see, the charge icon is blinking, so this is working as well. Alright, so everything seems to be working fine on the case here. This is my tutorial. Kind of. I'm not really a professional, but whatever, you know. If you want to do this your own, obviously do so at your own risk. You do run the risk of destroying your BE, so please do so at your own risk. If you're not confident in doing this yourself, you could pay someone to do this. Another thing to note is that the NFC reader is on the back of the device now, and so when you go to transfer monsters in and out of the Digivice now, you're going to have to put the phone to the back of the device in order for it to read it. So that's my video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will be doing another BE mod case for this little thing right here. It's called the D-Mog, also made by J Yoshi, and this is supposed to pretty much represent the original boxes that the Digimon came in. So yeah, stay tuned for that video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. If you want to help me out at all, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.